Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. Having a good Monday. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, and we're going to be talking about AEW. There's a few AEW news stories I want to talk about. Specifically, let's start off talking about Braun Strowman. Now, Braun Strowman, just in general, over the course of the last 24 hours or so, has been having a field day on social media. Last night during the NXT TakeOver in Your House event on the WWE Network and Peacock, he was very much tweeting during that period of time. Since he was released by WWE a couple of weeks ago, he's been all over social media. We're really seeing less so much of Braun Strowman, more of Adam Shear, the real guy. He's been at Myrtle Beach Safari with elephants. I saw a video of him yesterday showering in the middle of the street with Mojo Rawley. The guy looks like he's having a great time. You can't knock him for that. But where could he be going next? That could be AEW, at least if Mark Henry has his way. Now, after joining up with AEW earlier this month, Mark Henry spoke to TMZ Sports about some other wrestlers he'd like to sign with the company. Of course, Mark Henry, part of his deal with AEW is to be a color commentator on AEW Rampage, a backstage coach, but also a talent scout and recruiter. In addition to wrestling a couple matches, he actually confirmed he will be wrestling matches for AEW. But Mark Henry is going to be a talent scout and recruiter. Now, obviously, Mark Henry has a huge history of signing talents or helping talents get their foot in the door with WWE, whether it's the likes of Braun Strowman to WWE in the first place, Bianca Belair, Daniel Bryan was a guy he very much lobbied for, and a plethora of other people got their starts in WWE, or the door was open for them in WWE because of one guy, Mark Henry. That's why I mentioned before, and I think a lot of people did when they spoke about Mark Henry signing with AEW, that it was a big signing for AEW. Why? Because of the names that he has brought into the pro wrestling industry, with the names he brought into WWE as a recruiter, as a talent scout, as a guy that went to Olympics, Olympic trials, strongman competition, Arnold Classics, any form of professional sports or whatever he went to, and usually along with Jerry Briscoe, who as well is no longer with WWE at this point, but he was very much instrumental in getting big names into the WWE, one being Braun Strowman. So could Braun Strowman be going to AEW? Well, as I mentioned, Mark Henry spoke with TMZ Sports about some of the wrestlers he'd like to sign with the company. Two names that are high on his list are former WWE talents Braun Strowman and W. Morrissey, formerly known as Big Cass. W. Morrissey now currently competing with Impact Wrestling. Now, Braun Strowman was among WWE's budget cuts earlier this month, and Henry said he's looking forward to AEW talking with him in the future, and certainly his quote has a lot of people talking here. Now, this is what Mark Henry had to say, quote, "He's super high on my list. It's not a Mark Henry decision, but there's already interest on both sides." So hopefully by the time he's allowed to wrestle in August, I think by the middle of August, we can have a serious conversation about contractual things. But right now, there's interest on both sides. Now, it was previously reported that Braun Strowman is currently asking for $20,000 to $25,000 plus first-class airfare, a two-night hotel stay, all meals and ground transportation covered for each appearance in his post-WWE career. Now, Henry also mentioned wanting W. Morrissey to come to All Elite Wrestling, but of course, Morrissey is currently under contract to Impact Wrestling. This is what Henry had to say, quote, "Big Cass too. I love that dude, but I don't want to talk about people who have contracts with people. I don't think that's fair." Now, Morrissey did confirm in an interview, I believe, with Gary Cassidy of Inside the Ropes last month, that his contract with Impact is not long-term. He defeated Rich Swann on Saturday night's Impact Against All Odds event, so maybe W. Morrissey as well as Braun Strowman comes to AEW in the future. Now, this is a fascinating story, not so much because there's interest on both sides. I've mentioned before, and I don't want to be one of those people that's, tooting my own horn, banging my own drum. See, I told you. But I said before that I don't see why, you could argue that Braun Strowman in AEW isn't a good fit, and it doesn't feel right. And considering that Braun Strowman, the thing is with Braun Strowman with WWE is that it's all he's ever known. And I think because of that, people always found it really difficult to see him somewhere else. I think Braun Strowman did before he was fired, certainly. But because of the fact that he was trained by WWE, he was recruited by WWE. He learnt his WWE, he learnt his pro wrestling career in the Performance Center. That everyone thought, there's no way he goes to AEW. That style, that promotion, everything just doesn't fit there. And a lot of people said that they can't see it. I said at the time that I understand that, but also I suppose on the flip side of things, maybe that's why it works. We're seeing at the moment, and I'm almost a bit hesitant to make this comparison, but I think it is accurate. We've seen at the moment Matt Cardona and GCW. Why does that work so well? Why does that angle work, and why has it got so much interest? Because he doesn't fit. It's totally out of place. Zack Ryder in GCW, which is like ECW and Japanese Deathmatch Wrestling shaken up and put into one and enhanced a couple of years because that's the world we're living in right now. Zack Ryder, WWE Zack Ryder, woo woo woo, you know it, Internet Champion, Z True Long Island Story, all of that kind of stuff. Major Figure Wrestling Podcast, that's Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona in that arena, in that company. It's so out of place. It's like Jim Cornette and Jerry Lawler when they used to show up in ECW in the late 90s. It's so wrong. It's almost, it was heresy to have that kind of person show up in that company. Now, is it the same level of Braun Strowman going to AEW? I don't know. But just because they're not the right fit, just because you go, I can't see him in that company, maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point. Braun Strowman could be a top heel in AEW. Why? Because he doesn't fit. What about a character that comes in, you know, he's a ginormous man. I think he's like nearly close to 7 foot tall. He's over 300 pounds. And he comes in, he's this big dominating guy. And he says, I hate AEW. Look at you. You're all marks. Look at you guys all diving around doing super kicks. You're all marks for yourself. You're all fans for yourself. This company sucks, but they're willing to pay me millions of dollars to be here. And that makes you sad. That makes you bitter. That makes you upset because I come in here. I don't give a damn about this company. I don't give a damn about pro wrestling. And yet I'm still the biggest star walking around this joint. They could do something like that. That is a money angle. That is a money storyline. Just because the fit isn't necessarily right doesn't mean it's a bad move. Now, what's really interesting about this is when this story first came out a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday? I don't even know when time works. But when this story first came out, the internet or social media was in uproar. Oh my goodness, absolute uproar about the sheer thoughts of Braun Strowman going to AEW. Oh, it's horrible, it's horrible. We don't need him there, or we don't want him in there. We don't want him in our AEW. There's enough big guys there. There's Wardlow, there's Luchasaurus, there's Lance Archer, there's Jake Hager, there's all of these big guys. Oh, Braun Strowman, how dare he come in? He can't come in. No, no, no. We don't want a ready-made WWE guy. We don't want someone that was made and trained by WWE. We don't want him in AEW. Oh, no, no, no. We can't have him in there. No, no, no. The issue that I have with that argument is that is the very same group of people that when he was released by WWE a couple of weeks ago, they're going, I tell you what, I can't believe it. WWE, what a waste. What a waste. They wasted Braun Strowman. This guy was super over. This guy was super popular. He was so popular and over in 2017 and 2018, and they missed the boat on him. He could have been so much money. He could have been a Universal Champion. I can't believe they released him. He should have been in main events, all this kind of stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, they're going, Braun Strowman might go to AEW. Oh, he's rubbish. He's terrible. No. He can't be a world champion. He's rubbish. He's terrible. I wouldn't push him. He's overrated. He's overhyped. Well, wait a minute. A couple of weeks ago, you were just saying just the opposite, saying WWE had missed the boat on this. Again, it's this kind of narrative I just don't understand. Sometimes when it comes to certain talents, there is just such an agenda on certain talents, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. Is it because he's a WWE guy? The idea and the narrative that's going on at this point, when it comes to Braun Strowman, I think is laughable, frankly. The narrative that Braun Strowman isn't over, or Braun Strowman isn't a draw, or he's not a good wrestler, all that kind of stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? Seriously? One of the weird narratives is he's 37, so he's not in his prime anymore. What? He's 37 years old. I know he's got some miles on the clock, you know, and I know that he even when he was in NXT, he had a real serious injury. I think he's lost like partial feeling in one of his legs because of the injury that he had. I think it was a back injury or something like that. But the idea that the guy's 37 years old and people are saying, he's not even in his prime anymore. If he goes to AEW, he's 37 years old, he's not in his prime. Seriously? 37? You've got Bobby Lashley, he's the WWE champion. He's in his mid-40s. AJ Styles is in his mid-40s. Now, I'm not saying Braun Strowman is an in-ring general like AJ Styles or even Bobby Lashley to that point, but to rule a guy out because he's 37 years of age, I think is laughable. And people will say, well, there's other big guys on the roster. Where is this definition that you can, we've got other big guys on there, so we can't have them in there? What? You've got a roster there, which is a diverse roster. It's a big roster as well. You know, you're launching a show on Friday nights, Rampage. You need stars in the company. You need new signings. There's some stars in that company that, frankly, probably need to get off the roster as well because they're not used. That's a bloated roster. But I think you're very naive if you're AEW and you look at a name like Braun Strowman. He was Universal Champion last year. And that's not the reason he should come in alone. He should come in alone because he's a well-known name. He should come in because he is, for his size, he is a decent worker. This is a guy that wasn't good for a long period of time. When he first came in the Wyatt family, 2015, of course he was terrible and green. He'd only had like 2 or 3 matches at that point. He'd been training not that long. But somehow But I guess by working with people like Mark Henry, like The Big Show, like Kane, like all of those big men that came before him, he became a good worker, a good big man for his size. And he was underused. And he wasn't used to the best of his ability. Braun Strowman, because when I've been doing, writing or reading or whatever, you look at Braun Strowman in 2017, the guy was super over. People wanted him to beat Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. He was that popular. He was that over. And yet people don't want that in AEW. And the response seems to be, well, that was then. They didn't take advantage of that. He's not what he was back then. AEW, whoever they've signed, maybe even people like Miro, but they're there now. It took a while, but they're there. AEW have a very good track record at hiding the negatives, extenuating the positives. So why wouldn't they do that with Braun Strowman? Braun Strowman tipping over ambulances, trucks, coming out of garbage trucks, saying, I'm not finished with you, destroying Roman Reigns, throwing chairs at people, all that kind of stuff, grappling hooks, you name it, spearing Bobby Lashley through the set on Monday Night Raw. That's awesome. That's great. You think AEW wouldn't want to capitalize on that? Of course they would. So this weird backlash from social media over having Braun Strowman in, oh, God, no, we can't have him in. I guess, again, because he's a WWE guy. I just think it's laughable. I think it's laughable. Again, I think it's agenda-driven. I don't understand it. Again, I think it's hypocritical as well, frankly. And I'm not a Braun Strowman mark. I'm just pointing out what is my opinion on this one. And my opinion is that, again, there's this agenda, or there's this hypocrisy out there that this is the reaction to Braun Strowman getting released is, oh, I can't believe it. He was so talented, and WWE really missed the boat on this guy. And yes, they missed their moment, and it struggled to get back from that and all that kind of stuff. But then a couple of weeks later, they go, oh, he could go to AEW, and people are going, no way. Oh, he's rubbish. He's terrible. It's like, well, a couple of weeks ago, you were saying he was great, and WWE missed an opportunity with him. Every other person that WWE's missed an opportunity with, people say, I'll bring him into AEW. They'll know how to work it with him. Like Miro, like Aleister Black, like whoever, when they're released, they go, oh, I tell you what, bring them into AEW. Finally, they'll be booked properly. Finally, they'll be booked in the right way. But for Braun Strowman, I guess because WWE's all that he's known, that's unacceptable. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. And I'm not one of these people either that's going to criticize AEW for bringing in WWE guys. Oh, you're only bringing the next WWE people. Unfortunately, with the business that we love today, most people have worked with AEW, with WWE at some point. That's just how it is, unfortunately. Most people have. There aren't a lot of people that have never been touched by WWE. There are some on the independent scene and all that kind of stuff, but I was just shocked. I was really shocked by the criticism of Braun Strowman possibly going into AEW. I find it staggering. I really do. Because he's money. He's money, of course he is. And the idea of, well, he's past his peak. He's 37 years of age. And people will say, well, he had his moment in 2017 and they didn't capitalize on it. That's very true. I said that myself. WWE missed the boat when it came to Braun Strowman. They had the moment in time and they didn't capitalize on it. But that was in WWE. He missed his moment in time in WWE. On WWE television, in WWE storylines, the Braun Strowman character was dead in the water because they didn't take advantage of when he was hot. Coming into just a completely different universe in AEW, Braun Strowman could be red hot straight away. Why not? Why not? Again, it's this weird, all I see is agenda when it comes to him, and I don't understand that. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest Braun Strowman fan. I liked Braun Strowman in 2017. I thought, as I mentioned before, I think WWE missed their moment with him. But I think the idea of people getting angry that he could come into AEW because he's a WWE guy or there's too many big men on the roster, seriously? You don't say that about anything else. Oh, there's too many whatever on the roster, don't bring him in. No. If you've got talent and if you've got money, if you can draw money, if you can put behinds in seats, especially when you're selling tickets, why not? And the idea of he's not a good fit, Braun Strowman's not a good fit, maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point. Some of the biggest heels aren't the right fit for the company. I don't be one of these people that's saying loads of people getting angry on marks because that's not fair and I'm getting, animated, certainly, but maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point. What's wrong with a bit of real heat nowadays, right? It's pro wrestling. So, I find that story just absolutely just staggering, fascinating, every other descriptive word you can imagine. I think it's crazy. Kenny Omega, AEW World Champion, could be set for a babyface turn in the near future, at least if reports are to be believed. Now, Kenny Omega, according to latest reports, one of the most premier heels in the industry and in AEW certainly, might soon undergo a drastic character change. Now, this is certainly interesting. AEW, though, might have to push back on Omega's heelish tendencies and instead protect him as a good guy sometime down the line. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer radio show reports that Omega, who is portraying a villainous character right now on AEW, Impact, and AAA television, might turn babyface sooner rather than later. The report also suggested that the AEW World Champion's recent struggles with injuries might have delayed the aforementioned plans for him. This is what Meltzer had to say, quote, "In time, Kenny Omega is doing this heel turn to come back and turn to be a babyface, a big babyface, whenever that will be in a year or whatever. With Kenny hurting, I don't know when that will be." Now, this is certainly going to be interesting, that Meltzer is saying that the plan is for him to turn babyface. It's kind of a similar situation, and I know I might get some flack for this one, but it's the plan. It's a similar situation to Roman Reigns in WWE in the sense that Roman Reigns turning heel in WWE, and you can go back and check these reports because they're out there, in August when he returned at SummerSlam and when he officially turned heel, aligned himself with Paul Heyman, all that kind of stuff. The plan for him to turn heel and to have an edge to his character is all based on him becoming a big babyface down the line. It's almost like the Rock principle. You know, Vince McMahon tried to push, and it's crazy how Roman Reigns' career just really does parallel the Rock's at this point, but the Rock came in, you know, smiling, white meat babyface, dead in the water, didn't work, crowd turned on him. Turns heel, and the idea, because even The Godfather, right, he was on this the Steve Austin Broken Skull Sessions program on the network recently, and he said that Vince McMahon came to him and the nation and basically said, we're going to add this guy, The Rock, in. He's going to be a heel, and he's going to become the biggest star in the industry, the biggest babyface in the industry, but we need to get him over first. We get him over as a heel. He gets so popular, you have to turn him into a babyface. Now, Kenny Omega's popular anyway. There's no, you know, if Kenny Omega can be a babyface if he wants to, he can be a heel, he's Kenny Omega. This is the most important, he certainly felt, I think, during his AEW career. There's no doubt about that. But it looks like the plan kind of is to have Kenny Omega as this big dominating heel, or a heel that's won all of these things, and eventually he gets so popular as a heel that he turns into a babyface. The only thing I will say is I don't know if Kenny Omega isn't that kind of heel that is like The Rock, in the sense that The Rock, you had to turn a babyface because he was just so entertaining. And I don't know if Kenny Omega's like that. I don't know if Kenny Omega's like that in the sense that even with like Roman Reigns eventually will turn babyface in the end because he's really cool. He's a cool heel. As much as he tries not to be, and a vicious heel, he's a cool heel. He will turn babyface because he's cool. I look at Kenny Omega, and he's good at being a heel. He's very good because, you know, his mannerisms, his, you know, cockiness, his attitude, sometimes his arrogance makes him a very good heel. And there is a portion of pro wrestling fans that maybe aren't AEW fans, let's face it, but certainly there's a portion of pro wrestling fans that don't like Kenny Omega because of the way he holds himself, because of the way he talks, because of the way he talks about pro wrestling and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how easy that's going to be. I don't know how easy that's going to be into turning Kenny Omega into a top babyface. Look, Kenny Omega's a top wrestler whatever he does. He's the best wrestler arguably in AEW. Again, it's the best work he's ever done in AEW. He is on fire right now. I do think, though, he's going to have to take some time off soon. Those reports about him being pretty banged up look to be legitimate, and his schedule is just outrageous at the moment, especially once AEW returns to touring as well. You know, you're talking about a guy that's going to be wrestling Jungle Boy for the AEW World Championship in a couple of weeks. He's obviously had that match against All Odds. I know it wasn't live, but that was taped a week ago. He's going to be defending the championship at Slammiversary against Sami Callihan. He's got the match at Triple Mania. It's just constant, and he's banged up. And he was banged up before this run as well. He was saying that he has a bad shoulder. He's going to need surgery on that soon. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Kenny Omega does take some time off, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6 months. He needs to heal up. And maybe that's going to be part of the babyface turn, I suppose. I suppose that's something they could do, in the sense that he has some time off, and it's a bit of the Triple H scenario. He goes away a heel, comes back a babyface, just because absence makes the heart grow stronger, that kind of thing. And then he comes back, maybe feuds with Don Callis. I don't know. There's elements that they could do there. But it's certainly interesting that Kenny Omega is going to be in line for a big babyface turn in AEW in the future, considering he's arguably the top heel in the company right now. Speaking of Kenny Omega, obviously, as I mentioned, he's got all of those championships at the moment, the AEW World Championship, Impact World Championship, and AAA Mega Championship. Now, he was on the PWI podcast, and he was asked about AEW partnering with other promotions and if there was any limits to AEW working with other companies. Now, that Omega said that he felt there would always be some sort of limits, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, they had shown that wrestling is better when companies decide to work together. This is what Omega had to say, quote, "I think there will always be limits. There will always be lines that you cannot cross, but I believe there is a world, right place, right time, when you can see every company working together." And I don't necessarily mean every company. I just mean if another wanted to work with another company, I think they'd be open to the idea. And I think, again, this is a terrible thing to say. One of the reasons the Forbidden Door, quote unquote, was opened with New Japan, it was partially due to what we're all struggling right now, which is the pandemic. For us to take a step back and stop worrying about our own stuff and see what kind of world we're living in. It's the same world, and how we need to set aside petty differences and how we need to set aside the age-old tropes. This is my company, my territory, and stay the heck out. There is no way we can ever play nice and cross paths. I think it was great now that people are realizing we're all struggling in the same way. We're all facing the same hardships. This is the same planet, and a lot of us are sharing the same fans. So why not make the world a bit of a better place and the best for what we can do? Which is something very minor in the grand scheme of things, but which is just professional wrestling. We're not as important as a lot of us think we are, but if we can contribute in some kind of positive way with what we do and what we're good at, we need to take that motion and do that. That's always been my approach. To be honest, I couldn't agree with him more. I could not agree with him more in that sense. I do think the pandemic kind of forced people's hands in the sense, I think specifically when it came to New Japan, it's well documented, the heat that certainly Omega had with New Japan, and a lot of the people that previously worked there, whether it's Omega, the Bucks, Cody, New Japan held a grudge about that. Specifically, I guess Kenny Omega, because he was their world champion at that period of time. He won it, dropped it very quickly, and then signed with AEW. And there was a lot of heat there for a while because they felt that all of these people just upped and left and they started their own company. And, you know, there's those stories, isn't there? Well, Kenny went to Japan with Rio to work a mixed tag team match for a promotion, and he couldn't even get into the country. Now, I don't know if New Japan has that kind of influence, but that did happen. And there was reported to be massive heat with Omega and New Japan and all that kind of stuff. That's why they didn't really want to work with AEW. That's looking like it's kind of smoothing over, especially if you're Tony Khan in that promo the other week. Certainly looks like it's smoothing over. So I don't know. I don't know. I think he's right. I think he's right that what we've learned, again, it's been probably forced with the pandemic, but certainly what we've learned when it comes to companies willing to work together is that if they want to, they can do it. Now, throw WWE out of the equation. They don't work well with others. Those reports about WWE, they want to work with New Japan, or WWE want to work with MLW. Look, they didn't come true. I wonder why. Because they're not true. They're not factually accurate. WWE doesn't want to work with other promotions. They never have, unless they end up taking their talent or buying them. That's it. That's all they ever want. But other companies, whether it's AEW and New Japan, AEW and Impact, AAA, Ring of Honor, MLW, whatever company or promotion it is, I think we've basically learned here that if two entities or 3, 4, 5 entities want a deal to be done, they can. NWA as well of AEW. If they want to get a deal across the line, they can. Unfortunately, people have to make sacrifices. There has to be a bit of give and take. But if companies really want to make a deal work, they can. And I think we've learned that because of the pandemic, which is certainly, it's good to know going forward, isn't it? Because now when people complain in the future, companies say, oh, they wouldn't work with us, or this wouldn't happen. This goes, well, it happened and worked in the past. And it goes to show that realistically, as I mentioned, if you want a deal to get done, they can. They can do it if they want to. So it's only people that are stopping them are themselves most of the time. Finally, I wanted to talk about this. Dustin Rhodes responded to some backlash over his recent BULLROPE match on Friday Night Dynamite. Now, AEW star Dustin Rhodes, this is such a funny story. Dustin Rhodes asked people on Twitter what they thought about his BULLROPE match with Nick COMOROTO. Now, the match happened on the June 4 edition of AEW Dynamite. Now, Dustin Rhodes received some backlash because he won the match and didn't help put the young talent Nick over. One user tweeted, "It was unnecessary and you should have lost. You have a Billy Jack Haynes, Bruiser Brody hybrid, and you have him getting beat in a match he should have dominated. If you were passionate as you claim, you should have put him over." Dustin Rhodes replied, "He is a better wrestler after being in the ring. That is why your opinion specifically doesn't matter. Your mum wants you in the basement. #basement dweller." Another user said his match could have been better. The user also wrote that COMOROTO could use some wins on Dynamite. Dustin Rhodes responded, "He did win. He was in a match with me. Everybody that works me becomes better." Dustin Rhodes was also asked what the point in was having the match. He simply answered, "Pay attention to the product." So I found it funny that the reason I find this humorous is because Dustin Rhodes goes, "What's your opinion on the bull rope match?" Some people have a negative opinion, and he tells them their opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't really work like that, Dustin. Everyone's got an opinion. Just because you don't necessarily agree with them, it might not be factually right, but I guess it's their opinion. We've learned that, just irrespective of pro wrestling, we've learned that over the course of the last year or so. People have opinion. They don't care about fact, fiction, whatever. They're going to stick to their opinion. Once you ask for it, though, that's when it's different. Once you say, look, what did you think of this? Like if I said to you, what did you think of this video? And you said, I hated it. I would go, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. Well, I asked you for your opinion. You know, I asked you for it and you gave it to me. I can't get angry because you gave me your opinion. So I don't really get that. I understand some of the criticism as well, frankly. But this goes to this whole Nightmare family and the factory storyline in that. Who's really getting over here? Because it's not anyone in the factory. It's not, and I don't really want QT Marshall to get over. I'm kind of tired of that. I could not care less about that storyline, frankly. But I would have thought at least the sort of shining light coming out of this is that some of the guys from the factory would get over. They're younger guys, they're less established guys, so they'll get over, right? Right? No, all they do is lose. The Nightmare Factory, or the Factory, whatever you want to call them, apparently is just full of losers, because all they do is lose in big matches, whether it's Anthony Ogogo at Double or Nothing, whether it's Nick Comoroto in this bull rope match on Dynamite. And I understand people's perspective here is that Dustin Rhodes is in his 50s, you know, he's a veteran talent on the roster, but surely that was the spot for Nick Comoroto to win. It's the same point that I said about Anthony Ogogo at Double or Nothing, is that when you're an up-and-coming guy, when you're a young guy, when you're in your first few big matches, that matters. That really, really matters. The outcome matters in that match. If Dustin Rhodes lost that bull rope match, are people going to say, oh, it's the end of Dustin Rhodes, he's not over anymore? Of course not. He's been wrestling forever. Everyone knows who Dustin Rhodes is. He still has credibility. It doesn't matter. What it does matter to is Nick Comoroto, because as a casual fan or people in the audience, even if they don't even realize it, subconsciously, they now look at him and go, that's a loser. He's not as dominating as I thought he was because he lost a big match. When he had his first big match, he lost. We mentioned it with Braun Strowman earlier on. There is a moment in time for people in certain companies. Now, I'm not saying Nick Comoroto's moment in time is right now, but I'm saying that who really got over in that match? Because Comoroto, did he get over? I don't think he did. Anthony Ogogo against Cody Rhodes, did he get over? No, he lost. He lost. In the eyes of many, he's a loser. And they can then say, well, no, because he knocked Cody Rhodes out on Dynamite. Who cares? The big moment was the match. The big moment was the match, and he lost. Same with Nick Comoroto. So I do agree with those criticisms, and I find it humorous that Dustin Rhodes gets angry if people gave their opinion after he asked for it. What? Very strange. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.